This year, Winston-Salem Forsyth County Schools adopted 6 core values that we have been exposed to, and I'm excited to let you know that those 6 core values align nicely with the research that I am sharing with you today. They are the basis for which we do all of the work that we do in our district, and they are all focused around the priority of every student succeeding. And each of our schools created our own framework of beliefs, core values, and practices based on those values that the district upholds so that we could do the work that has to occur within our building. We also, as a school, have looked at our school performance grade information and other data to help us determine where we are and where we're going. This study can help you reach your goals. The outline of this study suggests that if you choose to join in with me, that we could conduct 4 components of a study that would help us change the outcomes for our students. We would first ask that you join us in a pre-assessment of completing a survey today. This survey would give us a baseline of data on the poverty awareness of your school and individuals, as well as the teacher efficacy awareness. After the surveys are completed, the data would be collected along with school-wide data and other information to design a profile for your school that would suggest areas for us to target throughout the study. During the study, you would then be provided strategies, interventions, and resources directly correlated with those areas being targeted that you could implement within your individual classrooms, as a grade level, or even as a school. Those interventions and strategies would focus on poverty, fostering a safe, healthy learning environment, building leadership capacity, focusing on learning and achievement, of course, and also building teacher efficacy. Then, at the conclusion of the study, you would be asked to complete a survey again in order for us to determine if these strategies, interventions, and resources had positive or negative impact or no impact on the work that you do in order to help us best serve our students of poverty. It is our desire that if the work that we do in this study sets positive results for our students, that we share these practices in a framework with other schools so that we can begin to help Winston-Salem Forsyth County School make student achievement at high levels a reality for every student that walks in our door. So you may be wondering, why are we focusing on poverty in this study? Well, did you know that 43 schools in Winston-Salem Forsyth County Schools were Title I schools last year? Recently, I heard that 19,000 of our students in our district would be eligible for a special program based on their family's access to SNAP services, which directly correlate to our free and reduced lunch population. So, poverty is a conversation we have to have, and I think you would agree with that. In addition to having a conversation about poverty, we have to remove some of those myths about our students and help everyone to realize that each of our students enters our school building with the opportunity and the desire to achieve at high levels, and it is our responsibility to help them move from that curiosity and energy on day one to that college and career ready status at the end of completion of 12th grade. However, we know that our students face some difficulties when they come from an impoverished background. And notice I did not call them poor children because children are not poor. They come from situations of poverty. Did you know that 1 in 5 children in Winston-Salem Forsyth County schools lives in poverty? Poverty is relative to our area. Poverty is relative to our city, our state, and our nation, as you can see where the United States ranks with other countries around the world. Poverty is ever changing. Many of us have always heard of poverty as it relates to financial poverty and economic status. But did you know that there are 9 ways to identify poverty? that students could be emotionally impoverished. They could be without mental and cognitive development, which creates a different type of poverty. Their poverty could be spiritually based, physically based, and emotionally based. Along with their status of poverty, there are also hidden rules, languages, and systems of thinking related to impoverished situations that change how students function within our schools. Children's Defense Fund reported some staggering numbers about poverty nationally. Take a look. Did you know that have you heard that were you aware that has it crossed your mind that did you know that and how could we ignore that? Ladies and gentlemen, poverty is real, it's relative, and it's right here in our community, and we live it every day as we see students with circumstances that touch our hearts. The question is, what do we do about that? Ruby Payne and Eric Jensen would remind us that as educators, we must combat hopelessness and instill in every child the self confidence that they can achieve and succeed in school. But first, we must stop and assess ourselves and our awareness of poverty before we begin to embark on the work that has to be done. So let me ask you this question. How many of you believe that you could survive poverty if your life circumstance changed today? Please show by raising your hand. Without being present, I would guess that there might have been some who felt that they might be able to survive in poverty. But later on, as you participate in this study, you'll get a chance to see how equipped you are and how alert we are to what really happens in the lives of our students who live in impoverished situations. The first step of that awareness is being able to gauge how much we know compared to how much we think we know. Because until we truly understand the life and plight of our children who live in impoverished situations and their families, it is hard for us to address and implement systems that support those students and families to be successful in school. This study will work to help to raise your awareness of poverty and to provide you strategies that will help your students overcome their current situations to be more successful in school. Once we know and understand where we are with our awareness of poverty and its impact on students, it's also important for us to look at other factors that impede our students. In our district, we are looking at achievement gaps as it relates to subgroups, socioeconomic status, and so forth. But it's important for us to look at all of the angles that impact our students to make sure that our schools are addressing the racial gap, the achievement gap, opportunity gaps that exist for our students, and let us not forget the attitude gap. And yet we must ask ourselves, what do we do to address those gaps? We are fortunate that in North Carolina and our nation, and even here in Winston-Salem, there are different models that we have of districts and schools that have taken on the challenge of addressing these gaps, whether it's uncommon schools and their methodology and values that support moving schools that are 90% or higher free and reduced lunch, 90% or higher minority population, into becoming schools that are 90% or higher with achievement, or whether it's looking at a turnaround model that help schools to focus on the work that they do explicitly to turn schools into high achieving learning environments for all students, regardless of their circumstance. Or even if it's a new model, which is the model for this study, with Parrott and Budge, who look at turning high poverty schools into high performing schools using their research on 7 concrete school practices and 13 other studies that have identified strategies and interventions that work. There are models to be found, yet we haven't found the magic answer that automatically transforms any school. We know this because when we look at national data, the national data shares with us that we continue to see improvements in student performance, yet the achievement gaps continue to exist, specifically between students who are on free lunch, reduced lunch, and those that are not. We also continue to face this reality as we look at our specific proficiency goals, where we may have subgroups of students who are performing at high rates, but we continue to see the gaps between our students, and we continue to see that we not only have improvement to make, but we're climbing stairs, hills, and or mountains depending on which subgroup we're comparing for our gaps. So what do we do at this point? We start to identify a framework of the research that has worked instead of reinventing the wheel. We examine the wheel, we examine those strategies, and we pull them together along with the knowledge about our school population and our school needs in order to create a framework that allows us to change our leadership within our school, supporting our teachers, our learning environment for achievement, and our practices around providing a safe, supportive, healthy learning environment. In turning high poverty schools into high performing schools, those 3 key areas of environment, achievement, and capacity are areas that can be reviewed by first doing a pre assessment of the school's practices to determine where the school culture is in each of those 3 areas. Then, secondly, putting in place specific strategic strategies, interventions, and using resources that will help to improve the environment for the school so that the students can be set up for success. The same pre assessment rubrics exist for focusing on the learning and building capacity through this study. After completing those pre assessments and putting in place strategies, then the work is to determine if there are changes in adult practices that then directly lead to positive change for student proficiency. But there's one key factor that we haven't discussed that also must be considered in addition to understanding poverty and in addition to having a framework that works with practices that have been researched. And that third component is the most important component, the teacher in the classroom that matters. Research shows that a highly qualified teacher that can effectively deliver instruction year to year for a student can close achievement gaps and help students to overcome any barriers outside of the school setting. However, if you ask teachers who work with students of poverty, you sometimes find that teachers do not feel that they are equipped or prepared or can significantly impact the life and the trajectory of a student's education because of those barriers that exist. Their beliefs about their ability to implement change relates directly to self-efficacy. Bandura in his 1986 research, followed by Hoy and Workman's research, found that self-efficacy is the belief in one's capabilities to organize and execute the sources of action required to manage prospective situations. In other words, do I have the skill set, the ability to make the change for students that we need to see? So, the work of this study is to pull all of this information together, the aspects of poverty, teacher efficacy, and the resources and strategies that have been researched in order to cause change to happen at a fast and effective rate that can be sustained. So I invite you to join me in this study, being willing to be the teacher who does the pre-assessment that you would do today by survey, being willing to take a look at the profile provided to your principal and to your school based on the data from this baseline survey, to be willing to utilize resources, interventions, and strategies provided to you through literature, through professional development opportunities, and through instruments that you could use in your classroom. And lastly, being willing to participate in a post assessment that would allow us to determine if these practices worked and made a difference to improve your school, your teacher efficacy, and long term to have positive impact on your student achievement. So, Bobcats, if you're ready to help in this fight against the impact of poverty on our students, it's as easy as one, two, three. Review and complete the participant consent form given to you by your principal that says that you are aware that this is an approved study and that you want to be a part of the work. After you have done that, turn that in and move right on to locating the survey. It can be found on the website www.wsfcs.k12.nc.us/page/42408. Or if you're on your computer right now, you can go to Winston-Salem's website, select the school, Conoke Elementary School. On the left, select Principal's Corner, and on that page, select HP to HP with the directions that are given to you. This survey can take up to 20 minutes, but some have completed it in less than 10. Please do not think too long, just give your response and keep it moving. After you've done that, you would have opportunity when you get your data back to select strategies and interventions that you want to put in place that are short term but hopefully give you long term results. So, if you're ready to begin this process, I'd ask that you first sign your consent form, and after you have signed your consent form and turned it in, you may complete a three-part survey. First, with the demographic information to help us to identify trends. Secondly, understanding poverty. We will get a baseline poverty IQ for each person in school. And lastly, the teacher efficacy survey. This survey can take 20 minutes or less. We've had some do it in 6 minutes because it's asking you for your first honest reaction as you read through the information. If you think too long, you're thinking too hard, and you're not going off of your gut reaction. So please, if you are ready to begin at this time, Ms. Spencer, take it over, have your staff begin, and I look forward to looking at your results in the next few days to provide you your profile. Ready, set, go. Ready, set, go.